Bullies slapped poor woman in a club. An hour later, 5 Mafia boss arrived and did. A broke coat check girl is slapped on the floor of a neon club. 1 hour later, 5 kings of the city walk in, shut the doors, and make the whole room kneel. They punish the bullies, but then a red laser lands on her chest. Someone wants her gone. She's dragged into protection by the coldest one, and he's gentle only with her. A secret video on her phone shows a ghost the underworld swore was dead. A fire burns a flower shop. A ledger appears. One of the 5 is a traitor, and the woman they tried to break becomes the bait that could break the crown. When the shots start and the masks come off, who is really being hunted? Her, the city, or the man who swore to keep her? Will protection turn into power, or into a kiss that starts a war? The bass thrums through Mara's bones as she dabs at her split lip with a damp paper towel. Her reflection in the coat check's tiny mirror shows the mark turning purple, but she refuses to let her hand shake. 6 years of working clubs has taught her that weakness only invites more abuse. Through the booth's plexiglass, she watches the usual Friday night chaos unfold. Drunk college kids grinding on the dance floor, bartenders juggling bottles, bouncers prowling the perimeter. But something feels different. The energy has shifted, like the air before a storm. When the house lights strobe to darkness, Mara's spine tingles. She's memorized every scheduled light change, every DJ transition. This isn't on the program. The music continues, but the crowd's movement changes. Less dancing, more confused shuffling and nervous glances. Security teams materialize at each exit, their earpieces glowing blue in the dark. Not the regular Eclipse bouncers. These men move differently with military precision. Mara's photographic memory catalogs the details. Identical black suits, right-hand bulges that suggest concealed weapons, communication devices that look far more sophisticated than standard club gear. The drunk college boy who slapped her is still at the bar, laughing too loud with his friends. He hasn't noticed the change yet, still riding high on expensive cocktails and the rush of putting a servant in her place. Mara touches her lip again, tasting copper. From her position in the coat check, she has a clear view of the mezzanine level where the VIP sections overlook the main floor. A figure stands at the railing, tall, still as a statue, in an expertly tailored suit. Even in the pulsing lights, she can feel his focus locked onto the floor below. On her! Her breath catches when he reaches for his phone. One text, and the atmosphere crystallizes into something dangerous. The main doors swing open with devastating purpose. 5 men enter, moving like shadows given form. The crowd parts instinctively, animal hindbrain, recognizing predators in their midst. Music still pounds, but conversations die. Laughter chokes. Off, phones disappear into pockets. Mara's mind catalogs them automatically. Leader in front, 2 flanking, 2 covering the rear. Their movements are choreographed, practiced. These aren't random thugs looking for trouble. This is precision, purpose, power. She shrinks deeper into her booth, but her eyes never stop recording details. The leader's suit costs more than she makes in a year. His companions wear similar quality, but subtly different cuts, marking them as subordinates while still showcasing wealth. Their shoes are handmade Italian leather, not meant for nightclub floors. The college boy is still oblivious, now trying to impress a girl by ordering another round of top-shelf shots. His friends have noticed the change, though. They're tugging his sleeve, trying to get his attention. He shrugs them off with a drunk sneer. Mara's gaze flicks between the approaching men and the mezzanine figure. The connection is obvious. They move with the same deadly grace, wear similar bespoke suits. This is coordinated, planned. Her split lip throbs with the bass line. The dance floor has become a sea of held breath and wide eyes. Even the most inebriated clubbers sense the shift in power. The DJ keeps the music going, but his hands hover uncertainly over his equipment, watching the scene unfold like everyone else. Security teams have sealed every exit. The regular bouncers stand back, deferring to these new arrivals without question. Mara notices the club manager emerging from his office, face pale as paper. He takes one look at the situation and retreats, pulling his door shut with trembling hands. The 5 men move through the crowd like sharks through water, smooth, inevitable, radiating lethal capability. Their leader's eyes sweep the room with casual ownership. He knows exactly where he's going. They all do. Mara forces herself to breathe slowly, evenly. Her instincts scream to run, but there's nowhere to go. Besides, she's not the target. She can't be. She's nobody, just a coat check girl who happened to get slapped by a drunk idiot. But the man on the mezzanine hasn't looked away from her once. The college boy finally notices something's wrong when his friends abandon him, melting into the crowd. He turns, drink sloshing, and finds himself face to face with 5 men who radiate violence beneath their expensive suits. His false bravado crumples like wet paper. The leader steps forward. Even through the thundering music, Mara swears she can hear his Italian leather shoes click against the floor. Each step is measured, unhurried. He moves like someone who's never had to rush, never had to chase. Why run when your prey can't escape? In the strobing lights, Mara sees his face clearly for the first time. Sharp cheekbones, aristocratic nose, eyes like frozen steel. Handsome in the way that beautiful, dangerous things are handsome. A sword's edge, a tiger's smile. His expression is pleasant, almost gentle. That's somehow worse than anger would be. The college boy stumbles back, looking for an escape route. Finding none, he raises his hands in clumsy surrender, drink finally falling from nerveless fingers to shatter on the floor. No one moves to clean it up. No one moves at all. Above, the man on the mezzanine slides his phone into his pocket with elegant precision. His attention remains fixed on Mara's booth, measuring her reactions, cataloging her responses. She forces herself to stay still under his scrutiny, though her heart pounds hard enough to match the baseline. The 5 men have formed a loose circle around their quarry. The leader's pleasant smile hasn't wavered. The college boy's mouth opens and closes, but no sound emerges over the relentless music. Sweat darkens his designer shirt despite the club's air conditioning. The VIP room's velvet walls seem to absorb sound as Calder Voss leads his procession inside. 4 men flank him, each radiating their own brand of danger. Salvatore Gallo's thick fingers drum against his thigh, impatient. Dorian Cade surveys the room with sniper's eyes. Enzo Valeri adjusts his cuffs, a habit that masks calculation. Kellen Price's smile doesn't reach his cold eyes. Security drags in the college boys, their designer clothes now wrinkled, faces slack with terror. They hit their knees hard on the marble floor. The thud echoes. "Phone's out," Calder orders, voice soft as silk over steel. "Stream it live!" The club owner scrambles to comply, hands shaking as he sets up the recording. Sweat darkens his collar. The hard drive sits on the table between them like a bomb waiting to detonate. Mara presses herself against the back wall, trying to become invisible. Her chest rises and falls in quick, shallow breaths. She catalogs details automatically. The way Salvatore's ring catches the light when he cracks his knuckles. How Dorian's stance suggests military training. The precise fold of Enzo's pocket square. The calculated casualness of Kellen's lean against the bar. But it's Calder who commands the room. He moves with liquid grace, every gesture precise and purposeful. When he speaks, even the air seems to listen. "Apologize to the lady," he tells the kneeling boys. His tone is conversational, as if discussing the weather. That makes it worse. The first 2 stammer out apologies, voices cracking. The third manages something coherent about being drunk and stupid. The 4th just cries. The 5th, the one who slapped her, spits. The glob of saliva lands on Mara's sneakers. The room temperature drops 10 degrees. Calder moves so fast he seems to blur. His hand closes around the boy's wrist. One twist, a sharp crack, and the scream that follows is cut short by Dorian's palm over the boy's mouth. "That was rude," Calder says mildly. He straightens his tie, steps over the whimpering form, shrugs off his jacket, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than Mara's car. With gentle hands that belie his previous violence, he settles it over her shoulders. The warmth of the fabric, still carrying his body heat, makes her shiver more than the cold. His fingers brush her collar, adjusting the fit. The touch is feather-light, careful, professional, but his eyes, when they meet hers, are anything but. "The footage!" Salvatore growls, breaking the moment. The club owner jumps, nearly dropping his phone. Of course!" He fumbles with the hard drive. "Just a misunderstanding, right? Boys will be..." The red dot appears on Mara's chest like a drop of blood. Her breath catches. Glass shatters overhead. The chandelier explodes in a rain of crystals, showering the table in rainbow fragments. The bass cuts out mid-beat, leaving a ringing silence. Calder moves instantly, pulling Mara against his chest. His body becomes a shield, one arm curved protectively around her waist, while the other reaches beneath his suit jacket. She feels his heartbeat, steady and slow despite everything. Dorian's already at the window, scanning roof lines. Enzo has the hard drive, fingers flying over his phone. Kellen positions himself between the targets and the door, while Salvatore bellows orders into a radio. The college boys huddle together, forgotten. The club owner has gone gray, swaying on his feet. And Mara can't stop noticing things. The lingering scent of sandalwood from Calder's jacket, The way his chest rumbles when he speaks, how his hand spans her entire waist, warm through her thin shirt. "Status!" Calder demands. His voice vibrates through her. "Clear shot from the Madison building," Dorian reports. "Professional setup, they're gone now. Cameras? Looping blank footage for the last hour," Enzo confirms. "But the live stream went through, it's trending." "Perimeter?" "Sealed," Salvatore says. "My boys are sweeping the block." "Interesting timing," Kellen observes smoothly. His eyes flick to Mara, calculating. Calder's arm tightens fractionally around her. A warning? A promise? She can't tell. She should be terrified. She is terrified. But something about being held against 6 feet of lethal protection makes her feel safe. And that's the scariest thing of all. Crystals crunch under designer shoes as the dons move with practiced efficiency. Phones appear, orders given, plans adjusted. The machinery of power shifts and realigns around this new development. Around her, the college boys are hauled away, still crying. The club owner slumps in a chair, mopping his face. Security guards their posts, eyes down, trying to be invisible. And through it all, Calder doesn't let go of Mara. His jacket drowns her small frame, but the weight feels like armor. His hands, capable of such casual violence moments ago, cradle her with impossible gentleness. When he speaks, his breath stirs her hair. "Breathe," he murmurs, so quietly only she can hear. "You're safe!" She wants to laugh at that. Safe? With a sniper's laser sight still burning in her memory? With 5 of the city's most dangerous men turning her workplace into a war room? With his jacket around her shoulders like a claim? But her body betrays her, relaxing into his hold. Her breathing syncs with his automatically. Her fingers curl into the fabric of his shirt without conscious thought. And when he looks down at her, those steel-gray eyes softer than she's seen all night, Mara knows with bone-deep certainty that her life will never be the same. Glass rains down as Calder moves with lethal grace. One moment Mara's standing, the next she's beneath the VIP table with his body curved over hers like living armor. Her cheek presses against the sticky floor, heart hammering as another shot cracks through the air. "Contact! Northwest corner!" Dorian's voice cuts through screams. His gun appears as if conjured, steady despite the chaos. "Enzo, cover fire. Clear that mezzanine." Enzo's already moving designer shoes, crunching on broken crystal. His return fire is precise, methodical. 3 shots that force the shooter to retreat from their perch. The sound echoes off marble and chrome, turning the club into a war zone. Bodies surge toward exits in blind panic. Security wrestles with the crowd until Salvatore's enforcers take control, their black suits and earpieces a promise of order. They funnel people through the service corridor in groups, preventing a deadly crush. Above them, boots scrape concrete. A shell casing pings against metal. Then silence, as if the shooter dissolved into the neon-tinged darkness. Dorian's curse suggests this wasn't random. The escape route had been planned, probably hours before. Calder hasn't moved. His breath fans steady against Mara's neck, one arm braced by her head, while the other keeps his gun trained on the nearest entrance. She can feel him analyzing, categorizing, deciding. His chest expands against her back with each controlled breath. Her hands won't stop shaking. The floor's grime sticks to her palms, and somewhere between standing and falling, she bit her tongue. The copper taste of blood mingles with spilled drinks and fear sweat. "Clear," Dorian calls finally. "But they're gone. Professional job." "Sweep the perimeter," Salvatore orders. "I want eyes on every rooftop within range." Kellen's already on his phone, voice low and urgent. Enzo holsters his weapon, fingers flying over a tablet as he accesses security feeds. The machinery of power shifts into crisis mode around them. Calder eases back, helping Mara sit up. His eyes scan her face, cataloging every micro-expression. She sees the moment he reaches his conclusion. She wasn't just caught in crossfire. She was the target. "You're coming with me," he says. Not a request. "Like hell." Her voice shakes but holds firm. "I don't know you. I'm not going anywhere." "Marcus Chen," Calder says softly. Mara freezes. The name hits like another gunshot. "Your manager at the coffee shop," he continues, "handed you an envelope yesterday morning. Brown paper, sealed with red wax. You didn't open it." The envelope sits in her locker, untouched. She'd meant to open it after her shift, but something about Marcus's expression when he gave it to her had made her hesitate. How does Calder know? "Someone's watching you, Miss Quinn." His thumb brushes her pulse point, gentle despite everything. Someone willing to risk a lot to make sure that envelope stays sealed, or that you don't live to open it. She should run, should scream, should do anything except stare into those steel gray eyes and see truth mixed with something darker. Instead, she swallows hard and nods once. My phone. Get it! Nothing else! The coat check booth feels like another lifetime ago. Her cheap smartphone sits in her bag, screen cracked but functional. When she returns, Calder studies it like he's measuring blast radius. The convoy waits outside, a sleek black sedan flanked by identical SUVs. Tinted windows reflect streetlights like oil on water. Armed men stand at intervals, watching shadows with professional paranoia. Dorian takes point while Enzo brings up the rear. They move with practiced coordination, boxing Mara between their bodies as Calder guides her to the car with a hand at her lower back. The touch is proprietary, warning off the curious faces in nearby windows. The leather seat is butter soft against her arms. Calder slides in beside her, close enough that his thigh brushes hers. The door clicks shut with bank vault finality. Engines purr to life. The convoy pulls away from the curb, melting into late-night traffic with practiced ease. Mara clutches her phone, thumb rubbing the crack in its screen. The city slides past in neon smears, already falling asleep despite the violence that just erupted in its heart. Calder watches her phone like it's a timer counting down. His hands rest loose in his lap, but tension radiates from his shoulders. Whatever's in that envelope, whatever connection exists between it and the sniper, he already knows. He's just waiting for her to catch up. Where are we going? She asks finally. Somewhere safe. His eyes meet hers in the darkness. Until we find who's hunting you. The we should frighten her, should remind her that hours ago he broke a man's wrist without blinking. Instead, it settles over her like his jacket, heavy with implications but oddly comforting. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. Calder's hand closes over hers before she can answer, thumb brushing her knuckles in silent warning. The call goes to voicemail. Buildings grow taller, older, more expensive as they drive. The convoy takes random turns, doubles back, ensures no one follows. Mara watches her familiar world recede in the mirror, replaced by marble facades and private security cameras. She should be planning escape routes, should be wondering if she'll survive the night. Instead, she finds herself studying Calder's reflection, the way streetlights paint shadows across his jaw, how his fingers remain gentle on hers, despite the predator's focus in his eyes. Her phone buzzes again, this time a text. The screen lights up between their joined hands, illuminating 5 words that make her breath catch. Did you open it yet? The convoy sweeps into an underground garage beneath a towering brownstone, tires whispering over polished concrete. Heavy steel gates rumble shut behind them. The building looms above, old money architecture hiding new money security. Every window gleams with triple glazed glass, every corner crowned with discreet cameras. Mara lets Calder guide her through a private elevator, his hand steady at her lower back. The touch should feel presumptuous. Instead, it anchors her as exhaustion and adrenaline wage war in her bones. The townhouse spreads across the entire top floor. Marble and mahogany speak of wealth, but it's the subtle details that whisper of power. Reinforced door frames, lines of sight carefully maintained, exits planned with military precision. This isn't just a home, it's a fortress. Sit, Calder says, gesturing to a leather armchair. The kitchen gleams with untouched appliances. Tea! She nods, watching him move with efficient grace. Steam rises from a stone mug painted with geometric patterns. The scent of chamomile wraps around her like a blanket. Let me see that lip. His fingers are surprisingly gentle as he tilts her face toward the light. The antiseptic stings, making her hiss. But his touch remains careful, clinical almost, as he cleans the split skin. Tell me about tonight's customers, he says while working. Anyone unusual? Someone watching too closely? Just the usual crowd, her voice sounds distant to her own ears. College kids, office workers letting loose, tourists who read about us online. She winces as he applies butterfly bandages. Though there was this one guy, kept ordering single shots, nursed them forever, wore sunglasses inside. Calder's hands still for a fraction of a second. What time? Around 10, right before my break. She frowns, trying to remember details. He paid cash, kept checking his phone. Your phone, he says suddenly. Give it to me. She hesitates, but his expression brooks no argument. The cracked device looks small in his large hands as he scrolls through her gallery. You took videos? By accident? She leans forward to look. Sometimes I hit the button when pulling my phone out at work. The coffee shop manager gets weird about phones during cash drops, so She stops. On screen, a blurry figure moves through frame. Male, middle-aged, unremarkable except for the way others unconsciously step aside. Like prey sensing a predator. Calder's breath catches. His thumb freezes the frame. You know him? A ghost, he says softly. Someone who's supposed to be dead? His eyes cut to her. The king? Information broker? Disappeared 3 years ago, after burning half the city's secrets. Mara stares at the frozen image. The man looks so ordinary, like any other customer ordering a latte. But there's something in his posture, the tilt of his head. He moves like someone used to being watched while watching others. Her eyes drift to the clock on the wall. 4 a.m. I have work in 5 hours, she mumbles. Morning shift at the diner. Calder rises, offering his hand. She takes it, letting him pull her to her feet. He walks her to the door like a gentleman ending a date. For a moment, she actually believes he'll let her leave. Then his wrist flicks, and 5 heavy bolts slide home with mechanical precision. You're not going anywhere, he says quietly, until I find out who leaked your location to that sniper. She spins to face him. You can't just... The words die as he places a gun on the kitchen table. The metal gleams under recessed lights, a promise and a warning wrapped in brushed steel. Someone wants you dead, Miss Quinn. Someone with resources and reach. His voice gentles. I'm trying to keep you alive. Exhaustion hits like a wave. Her legs wobble, and she sinks onto the plush sofa. Calder's jacket still hangs from her shoulders, smelling of expensive cologne and gunpowder. He settles into an armchair opposite her, position carefully chosen to watch both her and the windows. His gun remains within easy reach. The city hums beyond triple-glazed glass, traffic and sirens and the eternal rhythm of urban life. Inside, the townhouse feels suspended in amber, safe but trapped, protected but contained. Mara curls deeper into Calder's jacket, watching him through heavy lids. His posture remains alert despite the late hour, eyes scanning their surroundings with practiced vigilance. Taking first watch like a soldier in enemy territory. Questions crowd her throat. About the king, the envelope, why someone would want her dead. But exhaustion drags at her bones. The tea's warmth spreads through her chest. Her eyes drift shut, despite her best efforts. The last thing she sees is Calder's profile against city lights, still as a statue, guarding her sleep with the patience of a predator who's chosen his prey. Not to harm, but to protect. Through the haze of approaching dreams, she wonders which should frighten her more, the people trying to kill her or the man willing to kill to keep her safe. The city continues its gentle symphony beyond the glass. Inside, silence settles like dust. Calder maintains his vigil, gun close, eyes open, waiting for dawn to reveal the next move in a game Mara didn't know she was playing until tonight. His jacket wraps around her like armor as she finally surrenders to sleep. Tomorrow will bring questions, dangers, the weight of secrets she never meant to carry. But for now, she rests under the watch of a dangerous man who handles her with unexpected care. Morning crept through gaps in heavy curtains, painting steel appliances in muted grays. Mara blinked awake to the rich aroma of coffee and found Calder standing at the kitchen counter, his shirt sleeves rolled to expose corded forearms as he poured 2 mugs. 3 rules, he said, without turning. No calls, no windows, no lies. She sat up, his jacket sliding from her shoulders. The sofa's leather was butter soft against her palm as she steadied herself. That's it? That's enough. He set a steaming mug before her, the ceramic clicking against marble. Sugar? She shook her head, watching him move through the space with predatory grace. There was something unsettling about seeing someone so lethal performing mundane tasks, like watching a tiger pour coffee. Your lip needs attention. He retrieved a first aid kit from beneath the sink. It's fine. It's infected. His tone left no room for argument as he settled beside her, tilting her chin with careful fingers. The antiseptic stung, but his touch remained gentle, clinical. Why did you come for me? She asked as he worked. Last night, the whole city bows to you. Why care about one coat check girl getting slapped? His hand stilled. Mercy is complicated in our world. That's not an answer. No? Something dark flickered across his features. 3 years ago, I showed mercy to someone who didn't deserve it. My brother paid the price. He disappeared that night. The bandage wrapper crinkled in his grip. Sometimes kindness kills more efficiently than cruelty. Mara absorbed this, watching him apply the fresh bandage with military precision. Yet here you are, showing mercy again. His eyes met hers, winter gray and unreadable. Here I am. She excused herself to the bathroom, phone clutched in her palm like a lifeline. The screen reflected her pale face as she typed a quick message to her roommate. I'm safe. The error message was immediate. Number spoofed, unable to send. Her stomach lurched. Someone had already gotten into her phone, her life, her world. The bathroom's chrome fixtures suddenly felt like prison bars. A buzz from the front door made her jump. Calder checked the security feed before accepting a package, her coat from the club, professionally cleaned and folded. As she lifted it, something fluttered from the pocket. A playing card landed face up on the floor. The King of Spades, edges smeared with what looked horribly like dried blood. The King's calling card, Calder said quietly. It's not just folklore anymore. Mara's hands trembled as she picked up the card, placing it on the kitchen table between them. It sat there like a bomb, innocuous yet threatening. He wants me to know he can reach me, she said, voice steady despite her racing heart. Even here. Yes. Why? Because you saw something you weren't supposed to. Calder's phone buzzed once, a private number flashing before dying. His expression hardened. We're moving. Now. Moving where? But he was already in motion, gathering essentials with practiced efficiency. The gun disappeared beneath his jacket, extra clips into hidden pockets. He handed her a thick envelope. Emergency cash, ID. Memorized the details. She flipped through documents bearing her photo, but someone else's name. You had these ready? I have everything ready. He checked his watch. 2 minutes. The morning light seemed colder now, turning the luxurious townhouse into a gilded cage. Mara studied Calder as he moved, the controlled violence in each gesture, the way he positioned himself between her and the windows. Strange, how safety could feel like this, being guarded by someone who terrified everyone else. His presence should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like shelter, dangerous shelter, but shelter nonetheless. The King, she said suddenly. In the coffee shop. What did I actually see? A dead man walking. Calder's phone buzzed again. Same private number, same single ring. His jaw tightened. Time's up! She clutched the envelope of forged documents, mind racing. My roommate is being watched. We'll handle it. He touched her arm, the contact brief but grounding. Trust me or don't, but decide now. Mara looked at the playing card, its edges stained rust brown, at the phone that couldn't reach her old life, at the man who killed without hesitation, but bandaged her wounds with impossible gentleness. The city stirred beyond curtained windows, oblivious to the game of shadows being played in its streets. Somewhere out there, a ghost called King was moving pieces she couldn't see. And here, in this fortress of steel and stone, stood a man offering protection, wrapped in danger. Okay, she said, I trust you. Something shifted in Calder's eyes, relief, perhaps, or resignation. He nodded once, then drew his gun and moved toward the door, every line of his body coiled with lethal purpose. The playing card remained on the table, a bloody herald of things to come. As Mara followed Calder into whatever darkness awaited, she felt the weight of choices closing around her like iron bars. But they were choices she made willingly, following this dangerous man into his dangerous world. Not because she had to, but because somehow he had become her best chance at survival. And perhaps, though she'd never admit it aloud, because part of her wanted to understand the contradiction of him. The killer who protected, the predator who sheltered, the man who turned brutality into a shield around those he chose to guard. The neon-lit streets blurred past tinted windows as they wove through the sleeping city. Calder's convoy split up at his signal, taking different routes to throw off any tails. Their destination emerged from the pre-dawn shadows, an unassuming flower shop wedged between a bakery and a bookstore. The shop's bell remained silent as they entered through a back door. Sweet perfume from hundreds of blooms mixed with the earthier scent of soil and green stems. Mara's shoes clicked against worn wooden floors, while Calder led her past buckets of lilies and roses to a hidden door behind a storage rack. Underground, the temperature dropped. The safe room was a concrete box warmed only by humming electronics and emergency lighting. Men in knee, tactical gear swept every corner with practiced efficiency, checking corners and communications equipment. Mara's racing pulse finally began to slow. She noticed how Calder maintained careful distance between them now, as if proximity itself was dangerous. He moved like a ghost at the edges of her awareness, present but untouchable. The playing card sat on a metal table between them, its blood-stained edges accusatory under the harsh lights. Next to it, her phone displayed the frozen video frame showing the king's face in profile. Mara leaned closer, studying details she'd missed before. "There," she said, pointing to a thin white line near his ear. "That's Scar." Calder's attention snapped to her like a rubber band. "You recognize it?" "Maybe. There was this regular at the diner, always sat in the corner booth. Nice suits, expensive watch. He had the same scar, but—" She frowned, remembering. "The Whispers said he got it in prison, before he died." The king's supposed death was convenient, Calder said. Prison riot, body burned beyond recognition, perfect cover to disappear. "So the myth is real. He's alive. And targeting you because you have proof." Calder's jaw tightened. "The king deals in secrets and silence. Your accidental video threatens both." Mara stood, pacing the narrow space. "Thank you," she said suddenly, "for not treating me like, I don't know, cargo, contraband, something to be locked away." She found herself backed against the brick wall, Calder's tall frame casting shadows over her. His hands came up to cage her, palms pressed against the rough surface on either side of her head. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. He inhaled deeply once, his face inches from hers. Then he stepped back, creating space she hadn't asked for. "You're not cargo," he said roughly. "Whatever happens between us, that's your choice. Always." The promise hung in the air like smoke. Mara's skin tingled where his breath had touched her. Before she could respond, Calder switched to strategy mode, laying out their next moves. "We need to duplicate that video. Hide copies where the king can't reach." He pulled out a laptop. "Multiple secure servers, encrypted drives. Make him chase ghosts while we verify his identity." They worked methodically, Mara describing everything she remembered about the man from the diner while Calder's fingers flew over the keyboard. The video file multiplied across networks like digital seeds being scattered. The first explosion came without warning, a deep thud that shook dust from the ceiling. Mara froze, watching fine powder drift down like snow. Above them, flames reflected orange in the shop's windows, turning the flowers into silhouettes against the growing inferno. Water hissed from triggered sprinklers, creating a surreal rain of petals and ash. Calder moved with predatory grace, sweeping Mara toward the stairwell as smoke began seeping through ceiling cracks. Heat pressed down as they reached the landing. Through the thermal cascade, Mara watched rose petals float past like bloody tears, carrying the scent of scorched sweetness. The safe room's screens flickered with emergency protocols, while men shouted coordinates into radios. Calder's body formed a shield between her and the chaos, his presence solid and certain despite the world burning around them. His hand found her waist, steadying her as another explosion rocked the building's foundation. The flower shop's glass shattered in the inferno, letting in the sound of approaching sirens. Emergency lights cast everything in crimson shadows while water continued to rain down, turning the stairwell into a vertical river. Through it all, Mara felt the phantom pressure of Calder's almost kiss lingering on her skin, a promise of something both terrible and wonderful, if she dared to choose it. The playing card in her pocket seemed to burn like a brand, marking her as part of this dangerous game, whether she wanted it or not. Smoke curled around their feet as Calder held her against the stairwell wall, his body tense with readiness. Above them, the flower shop's peaceful facade crumbled into chaos, petals drifting down through the destruction like nature's farewell confetti. The sprinkler's artificial rain soaked them both, plastering clothes to skin and washing away the boundary between protector and protected. In the red emergency lighting, Calder's eyes held stories of other fires, other escapes, other moments when safety hung by a thread. Water drummed against concrete while tactical teams coordinated their response through crackling radios. The peaceful flower shop transformed into a war zone of steam and smoke, its inventory of beauty reduced to sodden debris floating in the growing pools at their feet. Through the chaos, Mara caught glimpses of the world above, shattered vases, drowning flowers, windows belching smoke into the pre-dawn sky. The king's message was clear. Nowhere was truly safe, no fortress impenetrable, no secret buried deep enough to escape his reach. Dawn crept over the ruined flower shop, pale light filtering through smoke-stained windows. Water dripped from charred beams as the 5 dons gathered amid scattered petals and broken glass. Their expensive suits were soaked, their patience thinner than the ash coating every surface. Salvatore slammed his fist on a scorched display case. "The girl is a liability. Cut her loose before more buildings burn." Convenient timing, Kellen drawled, brushing soot from his sleeve. Perhaps Calder orchestrated this little drama to cement his control. Calder's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Enzo stepped forward, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled from the evacuation. "The video takes priority," Enzo insisted, pushing wet hair from his forehead. "Hand it over before more evidence is compromised." Dorian remained silent, but his hand never strayed far from his holster. His eyes tracked movements in the shadows, watching for threats while the others postured. Mara stood amid the destruction, water darkening her clothes, refusing to shrink under their scrutiny. As they talked over her like she wasn't there, something hardened in her expression. "The delivery driver," she cut in, her voice steady despite the tension. The Dons turned, surprised by her interruption. "The one who worked late nights here. I recognized him from my side job, hovering near the cash drop point." She met their stares one by one. "Those drunk kids at the club? Decoys. They made noise while the real surveillance happened quietly. Your nephew, wasn't it?" She directed this at Kellen, whose face tightened. Calder moved then, placing himself between Mara and the others. "Anyone who touches her dies." His voice was soft, almost gentle, but the promise in it made even Salvatore step back. "That's not negotiation, it's fact." He drew a knife from his jacket, the blade catching Dawn's light. With precise movements, he carved a lily into the burn counter, each stroke deep and deliberate. The symbol stood stark against the charred wood, a marker, a warning, a claim. The Dons absorbed this declaration in tense silence. Salvatore's face reddened, but he held his tongue. Kellen's smile turned brittle. Enzo studied the lily with calculating eyes, while Dorian nodded almost imperceptibly. By mid-morning, the sirens had faded and police tape cordoned off the street. Cleanup crews in unmarked vans began the process of erasing evidence. The neighborhood watched from behind curtains as men in suits came and went, their movements carefully choreographed to look ordinary. Calder guided Mara through a narrow alley behind the shop, his hand hovering near her lower back without quite touching. They moved like shadows between delivery trucks and dumpsters, taking a route that avoided security cameras. The dock sprawled before them, a maze of containers and warehouses. Salt air cut through the lingering smell of smoke in their clothes. Calder led her to a storage unit painted institutional beige, identical to hundreds of others stretching toward the water. "The florist kept seasonal stock here," he explained, producing a key. "At least that's what the paperwork says." The lock clicked open. Inside, past stacks of empty planters and withered holiday wreaths, Calder ran his fingers along the back wall. A seam appeared, then a panel swung outward with a whisper of hydraulics. Mara's breath caught. In the hidden space sat a single tin, wrapped incongruously in baby blue ribbon, as if it were a gift. She lifted it carefully, the metal cool against her palms. The ribbon came away easily, the tin's lid following. Inside, nestled in crumpled tissue paper, lay a flash drive, small enough to hide in her palm. Across the water, boat horns moaned their low warning songs. Gulls scattered from their perches on nearby cranes, wheeling away in a flash of white wings against the morning sky. The birds' cries echoed off metal containers like laughter or screams. Mara turned the drive over in her hands while Calder secured the false wall. The tiny device seemed too small to warrant such destruction, too ordinary to carry secrets worth killing for. Yet the King's organization had burned a building just to flush them toward this moment. The docks stirred with normal morning activity, forklifts beeping, workers calling to each other, ships creaking against their moorings. But beneath that routine rhythm, Mara sensed other movements. Watchers in windows, figures pausing too long between containers, phones recording their presence. Calder noticed too, his shoulders tensed as he scanned their surroundings, cataloging threats with practiced ease. The storage unit's door closed with a rattle of metal, erasing evidence of their discovery. Salt spray misted their faces as they stood in the shadow of stacked containers. The drive pressed against Mara's palm like a hot coal, a treasure and a target. Around them, the port continued its bustling dance of commerce and concealment, while beneath that choreography, darker currents stirred. The morning light caught the water, turning the harbor into hammered silver. It reflected off windows and metal surfaces, creating a maze of glare and shadow. Somewhere in that maze, the King's people were moving pieces into position, responding to the loss of their hidden cash. Mara felt the weight of the situation settle over her, like the heavy air before a storm. The drive in her hand connected her to a world of secrets and consequences she'd never asked to enter. Yet standing beside Calder, watching him plan their next move with deadly focus, she couldn't ignore the thrill beneath her fear. The SUV's tinted windows sealed them in privacy as Calder produced a sleek laptop from under the seat. Air-gapped, he explained, connecting the drive. No network access. Can't be traced. Mara leaned closer, her shoulder brushing his, as lines of code filled the screen. The data resolved into spreadsheets, each tab more damning than the last. Shell companies nested like Russian dolls. Payment routes snaked through offshore accounts. Bribes flowed to judges, politicians, and police captains, the invisible strings that made the city dance. The king's ledger, Calder breathed, his voice tight with recognition. His fingers moved across the keyboard, revealing layer after layer of financial architecture. He's mapped every connection, every weakness. This is how he controls them all. A recent transactions tab caught Mara's eye. Look at these transfers. She pointed to a pattern of payments, each tied to dates when security protocols had been breached. Someone's been selling information about the Five's movements. One of your own. Calder's jaw clenched as he studied the numbers. A traitor. His expression hardened into something dangerous. We need to get you out of the city. I'll have papers ready in an hour. New identity, clean background. No. Mara's voice was firm despite her racing heart. This isn't a debate. You're right, it's not. She turned to face him fully. I'm not running for my own life. I won't let someone else decide what happens to my body or what risks I take. If we're doing this, we're doing it as partners. The air in the SUV grew thick with tension. Calder's hands gripped the laptop until his knuckles went white. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Protecting you. It's the first thing in years that feels clean. Mara reached out, her fingers ghosting over his clenched fist. I don't want clean, she said softly. I want honest. The laptop slid forgotten onto the dashboard as Calder turned to her. His eyes searched her face, lingering on her lips. The space between them crackled with electricity. When he finally moved, it was with deliberate slowness, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His kiss was like nothing in her experience, controlled power held carefully in check. One hand cupped her face, while the other tangled in her hair, tilting her head to deepen the contact. He tasted of coffee and danger, and Mara found herself pressing closer, chasing that intoxicating combination. Just as heat began to build between them, Calder pulled back. His breathing was uneven, but his eyes were clear as they met hers. Your choice, he murmured. Everything that happens next, it's your decision. A sharp ping cut through the moment. Calder's private phone lit up with a message from an unknown contact. As they read it together, Mara felt him go absolutely still. Bring the girl and the ledger, or your brother's grave opens to daylight. Your brother, Mara whispered, watching emotions war across Calder's face. I thought, he's not dead. Calder's knuckles bleached white on the steering wheel. The king's been keeping him, like a bargaining chip. All these years. The confession hung heavy in the air-conditioned silence. Mara studied his profile, the muscle jumping in his jaw, the controlled fury in every line of his body. She thought about the gentle way he'd bandaged her lip, the careful distance he maintained until she closed it herself. A man carved by loss into something lethal, yet still capable of tenderness. How long, she asked. 5 years? His voice was sandpaper rough. There was a deal that went wrong. Marcus tried to show mercy to someone who didn't deserve it. I got there too late. Found blood, shell casings, nothing else. Everyone said he was dead, but there was never a body. Understanding dawned. That's why you broke that kid's wrist at the club. Why you said mercy has a price. Calder's laugh held no humor. The king likes to collect people's weak points, use them as leverage. My brother's life for my loyalty, other people's secrets for their cooperation. Now he wants you. Probably figures you're my newest weakness. Am I? His eyes met hers, dark with something that made her breath catch. Yes. The ledger's data glowed from the laptop screen, illuminating the SUV's interior with a cold blue light. Mara reached for it, scrolling through years of manipulation and control. Each entry represented someone's vulnerability turned against them, creating a web of influence that stretched across the city. He's been watching me, she realized. The envelope at my second job, the video, the card in my coat, he was setting this up, making sure you'd notice me, protect me, creating another pressure point to use against you. It worked. Calder's admission was quiet but unflinching. The moment I saw you stand your ground in that club, refusing to break, I knew he'd found something I couldn't ignore. Traffic flowed around their parked vehicle, the city continuing its normal rhythm while they sat suspended in this moment of truth. Mara thought about the choices that had led here. A late shift at a club, an accidental video, a stolen ledger, small actions that created ripples, becoming waves that threatened to sweep them both away. The phone screen still glowed with the king's threat. Mara reached over and covered Calder's hand on the wheel, feeling the tension in his grip. "Then let's use it against him," she said. "He thinks I'm your weakness. Let's show him what happens when he underestimates the wrong people." The mausoleum's marble gleamed dull gold in the setting sun. Calder's footsteps echoed against stone as he led Mara through iron gates, past weathered angels and fresh flowers. He stopped at a simple plaque marked Marcus Voss and traced the dates with his fingertip. "There's nothing inside," he said quietly. "Just an empty box and broken promises." Mara waited, giving him space to find the words. Wind rustled through nearby trees, carrying the scent of autumn leaves. The king had leverage over everyone, dirt, secrets, compromising photos. But Marcus, Calder's jaw tightened. Marcus was clean, wouldn't take bribes, wouldn't look the other way, so they took him instead. He pressed his palm flat against the cold stone. "I got a video of him, beaten but alive. The deal was simple. My complete loyalty for his freedom. I agreed without hesitation. 24 hours later, this appeared." He gestured to the plaque. "No body. Just a message that the king now owned my future." Mara stepped closer, her shoulder brushing his arm. "And you've been searching ever since." Every lead, every whisper, his voice roughened. 5 years of nothing until you accidentally caught him on camera." She watched his hands shake as he pulled them from the stone. Without hesitation, she took them in hers, steadying them between her palms. "Then let's use me." His head snapped up. "No. Yes, on my terms." She held his gaze. "Wire me for sound. Have teams covering every angle. Force him into the open where he can't hide behind proxies and mind games." "It's too dangerous." "More dangerous than letting him keep using your brother as a weapon?" She squeezed his hands. "You've been playing defense for 5 years. Time to change the game." His phone buzzed before he could respond. Dorian's name flashed on the screen. "What is it?" Calder's voice shifted to steel as he listened. His face went blank in a way that made Mara's stomach clench. "When?" "Send photos. We'll be there in 20. He ended the call and stood motionless for a long moment. "They found the kid from the club, the one who hit you." Something in his tone made her cold. "Dead?" "Skinned, with surgical precision." His eyes met hers. The king's signature was carved into one of the ribs. He's sending a message, wanting everyone to watch whatever comes next. The drive back into the city passed in tense silence. Mara's mind spun through implications, while Calder made rapid-fire calls, mobilizing resources and gathering intel. By the time they reached his command center, a converted warehouse with high-tech security, she had the outline of a plan. "We accept the exchange," she said as they walked inside. "But we choose the location, somewhere you can control." Calder studied tactical maps spread across multiple screens. "He'll expect that." "Good. Let him think he's 3 steps ahead while we're setting up 4 and 5. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "When's the last time you ate?" The question caught her off guard. Yesterday? Maybe." He gestured to one of his men, who disappeared and returned minutes later with takeout containers. The rich smell of pasta made Mara's stomach growl embarrassingly loud. "Eat first," Calder ordered. "Then we plan." She didn't argue. As she devoured garlic bread and fettuccine, they mapped out contingencies. Dorian's team would cover the perimeter. Enzo's snipers would take high ground. Surveillance drones would monitor thermal signatures and movement patterns. Everything would be recorded from multiple angles. "He'll have counter-surveillance," Dorian pointed out, arriving with fresh intel. "Probably already has eyes on us now." "Count on it," Calder agreed. "That's why we're not hiding our preparations. Let him see the obvious security. He'll be looking so hard for the trap. He might miss the truth in plain sight." Mara wiped sauce from her lips. "Which is?" "That you're not just bait." Calder's eyes held hers. "You're the hunter he didn't see coming." The warehouse hummed with activity as night fell. Enforcers loaded gear into unmarked vans, communications equipment was tested and verified, backup generators were fueled, medical teams stood ready. Mara's phone chirped, a text from an unknown number. She held it so Calder could read. "Midnight, Grand Opera House. Bring the ledger." A photo followed. Two men in a stark room, one standing, one seated. The standing figure held today's newspaper. The seated man, older, thinner, but unmistakably Marcus, stared directly at the camera. Alive. Calder's breath caught. His hand found Mara's shoulder, gripping hard enough to bruise before he caught himself and gentled his touch. "He's really alive," Mara whispered, "and being held at the opera house." Calder's tactical mind engaged despite his obvious emotion. It's been abandoned for renovation. 6 stories, multiple exits, complicated acoustics. Perfect for his style of theater. How many men? At least 20, probably more hidden in the wings and catwalks. He'll have escape routes we don't know about, emergency protocols if things go wrong. Mara nodded, mentally mapping angles and possibilities. Then we give him a show worth watching. Teams began moving out in staggered departures, taking positions around the opera house's perimeter. Each van carried different equipment: surveillance gear, weapons, medical supplies, communications tech. Piece by piece, they were building a net. Dorian approached with a sleek, bulletproof vest sized for Mara. "Last chance to back out." She took the vest, testing its weight. "No chance at all." His approval showed in the slight nod before he turned to Calder. "We're ready when you are." Calder checked his watch. 2 hours until midnight. Time enough to run final checks, verify positions, and prepare for whatever twisted performance the king had planned. The opera house loomed against the midnight sky, its faded grandeur a ghost of former glory. Mara's heels clicked softly across worn wooden boards as she moved center stage, the black dress Calder had chosen flowing around her knees. The wire along her spine felt cool, grounding her as dust motes danced in the weak emergency lights. Her voice rang clear across the empty seats. "I have what you want. Show yourself." Silence stretched, then shattered as soft applause echoed from the shadows. A figure emerged from stage right, elegant in a tailored gray suit, his movements precise as a conductor's. The king. His presence filled the space with calculated charm, making the hair on Mara's neck rise. "Beautiful entrance," he smiled, spreading his hands. "Though I expected nothing less from the woman who's caused such delightful chaos. Where's Marcus?" "Ah, straight to business," he tesked. "No appreciation for theatrical timing, but very well." He gestured, and 2 guards led a gaunt figure into the light. Marcus Voss, thinner than his photo, but standing. "The ledger excerpts first," the king said. "Then dear Marcus goes free." Mara held up a flash drive. "Proof of life first. Let him speak." Marcus lifted his head. "Calder, if you're listening, don't!" A guard's hand muffled the rest. The king's smile turned predatory. "Touching, but unnecessary. We both know your wire is transmitting to at least 3 backup locations, and Calder's teams have the building surrounded." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "What you don't know is which of the 5 already sold your location. Would you like to guess which Don would trade an innocent girl for a crown?" Metal glinted in the balcony. A sniper's scope catching light. Mara's pulse jumped as flames erupted stage left, the carefully placed accelerant igniting right on schedule. Gunshots cracked through the smoky air as hidden teams engaged. Strong hands yanked her backward as bullets splintered the stage where she'd stood. Calder pulled her behind the orchestra pit wall, his body covering hers as plaster dust rained down. 3 exits stage right," Mara recited, mind racing. 2 behind the curtain, 1 through the wings. Service door near the prop room. Emergency stairwell in the northeast corner. 4 hostiles down, Calder reported into his comm. Status on primary target. Through gaps in the smoke, Mara spotted the king slipping through a side door, flanked by guards. One carried a leather briefcase, likely containing the real ledger. She grabbed Calder's arm. "There, moving east." More gunfire erupted from above as Enzo's team engaged the balcony snipers. Dorian's voice crackled through comms. "Brother secured. Repeat, package secure. Medical needed." Calder's body tensed, ready to pursue the king, but Mara gripped his face between her hands. "Don't chase. Not yet." Their eyes locked. "This isn't their trap. It's ours. We got Marcus out. That's what matters right now." The smoke thickened as flames spread across the curtains. Mara could barely make out the teams converging on their position, securing paths to the exits. Emergency vehicles wailed in the distance. "Clear to move," Dorian called. "East side, 30 seconds." Calder wrapped an arm around Mara's waist, keeping her close as they navigated through the chaos. The heat pressed against their backs, and the grand chandelier crashed behind them, sending crystal shards skittering across the floor like deadly rain. They emerged into the cool night air, where an ambulance waited, its lights painting everything in harsh red pulses. Marcus lay on a stretcher, oxygen mask clouding with each breath as medics worked. When he saw Calder, he tried to sit up. "Easy," Calder murmured, gripping his brother's hand. "I've got you!" Mara watched them, noting the matching, stubborn set of their jaws, the way decades of separation melted away in shared mannerisms. Her attention shifted to the opera house, where flames now licked at Victorian windows. The king had escaped with what he thought was his prize, not knowing they'd fed him exactly what they wanted him to see. Teams regrouped around them, reporting casualties and positions. 2 of their men wounded, none dead. 3 of the king's men captured alive, no sign of the sniper team. The building's old sprinkler system finally sputtered to life, too late to save much but the stone foundations. Dorian appeared at her side, suit dusty but impeccable. "Your performance was convincing. He didn't suspect?" "He was too busy trying to unsettle me with hints about the traitor." Mara brushed ash from her dress. "He thinks he's still controlling the story. The leak about your location? Calculated. We needed him to think he had leverage." She watched Marcus being loaded into the ambulance, Calder never leaving his side. Some costs are worth paying. The fire department arrived, their sirens mixing with police response. Soon the street would be chaos, exactly the cover they needed to disappear. Dorian's men were already establishing their official story. Electrical fire during an urban exploration gone wrong. No bodies would be found. No evidence would remain. Mara felt the weight of the real flash drive pressed against her ribs, secured in a hidden pocket. The king had his decoy, but the true ledger remained safe. More importantly, they had Marcus. Alive, damaged, but free. The next move would be the king's, but for the first time, he'd be reacting instead of orchestrating. A second ambulance pulled up, this one their own. Calder caught her eye and nodded. Time to go. The game wasn't over, but tonight's piece was played. They'd sacrificed a pawn to protect their king, and their opponent didn't yet realize he'd lost his advantage. Mara took one last look at the burning opera house, its grandeur crumbling into ash, before sliding into the ambulance beside Calder and his brother. The doors closed, shutting out the chaos, and they pulled away into the darkness. Behind them, sirens wailed a discordant symphony for the final act yet to come. The Riverside warehouse loomed against pre-dawn purple, its metal walls sweating in the humid air. Inside, emergency lights cast harsh shadows as medics tended to Marcus on a makeshift cot. His eyes were glazed from pain medication, but his grip remained strong when Calder checked his pulse for the 10th time. Mara watched from near a stack of crates, noting how the brothers shared the same watchful stillness even after years apart. The massive projection above them turned the concrete floor into a sea of numbers and names, each line of the ledger exposing the city's skeleton of bribes and blood money. "Run it again," Salvatore demanded, pacing beneath the data. "Those transfer patterns through Singapore?" "Already mapped." Dorian's tech expert highlighted a series of transactions. "Same routing structure as the harbor shipments, all through shell companies registered to subsidiaries of Price International Holdings." Enzo's voice cut through the warehouse. "Kellen's been moving the king's money through his legitimate channels." The evidence built like a rising tide. Burner phone records showed calls matching the king's known meeting times. Security footage caught Kellen's car at dead drops. Every thread led back to the same ambitious spider who'd played both sides, feeding information while positioning himself to take control once the dust settled. Calder stood motionless, absorbing each detail with dangerous calm. Only Mara noticed how his fingers twitched near his holster, the tell of a predator preparing to strike. "The club attack was staged," she said quietly. "Those rich kids were paid to create a scene, get everyone's attention while the real surveillance happened." "And the flower shop explosion?" Salvatore turned to her. "That was meant to look like Calder losing control." Kellen suggested the safe house location. Dorian's jaw clenched. "He knew about the shop's basement." Marcus stirred on the cot, mumbling something about underwater lights. The medic adjusted his IV, and Calder moved to his brother's side, one hand resting protectively on his shoulder. "The king promised him the crown," Mara continued, piecing it together. "Once we were all eliminated or discredited, Kellen would step in as the stable choice to maintain order." "Ambitious little shit," Enzo spat, always smiling while he plotted. The projection shifted to surveillance photos, Kellen entering private clubs, meeting with dock workers, handling unmarked packages. In each image, his carefully crafted mask of charm never slipped. Calder finally spoke, his voice low enough that everyone had to strain to hear. "Secure the perimeter, triple the watch. No one enters or leaves without direct authorization." Commands rippled through the ranks as enforcers moved to their positions. Dawn crept closer, painting the high windows in pale gold. Mara felt the weight of what came next, settling over the warehouse like fog off the river. Calder crossed to where she stood, close enough that she could smell gunpowder and expensive cologne. His eyes searched her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You have a choice," he said softly. "Real one, not an illusion of one. I can erase you from every database, every camera feed, every piece of paper in this city. New identity, new life, somewhere they'll never look." His hand hovered near her cheek, but didn't touch. "Or you stay. Help us end this. But if you stay..." "It's war," she finished. "Real war, not just politics and profits." He nodded once. The warehouse seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her answer. Mara thought of her old life, double shifts and tired feet, counting tips and dodging grabby customers. She thought of the club, of standing her ground when that rich kid slapped her, of Calder's jacket draped over her shoulders like armor. "I stay," she said firmly. "Not as something to protect, not as a bargaining chip. I want to be the knife they don't see coming." Something dangerous and proud flickered in Calder's eyes. He stepped back, giving her space to own her choice. The Dons gathered around a blueprint of the cargo floor, plotting angles and exits. Mara's role took shape. She would approach Kellen, claiming she'd stolen a copy of the ledger, seeking protection from Calder's obsession. The perfect bait, a scared civilian with valuable information, playing right into Kellen's carefully maintained image as the reasonable one. Hours ticked by as they refined the plan. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness, each moment of lucidity sharper than the last. Medics reported his vital signs improving. By mid-morning, the warehouse hummed with controlled tension as teams moved into position. Mara changed into clothes that suggested hasty flight: jeans, running shoes, a jacket with deep pockets. They wired her with the smallest transmitter available, tested frequencies until the signal was clear. She memorized the layout of the cargo floor, the catwalks, every possible escape route. "He'll be armed," Calder warned as noon approached. "He maintains his image by letting others do the messy work, but he knows how to use a gun." "I know." Mara checked her earpiece one final time. "He'll want to seem non-threatening at first, keep his weapon low, friendly smile in place." Enzo's voice crackled through comms. "Target vehicle approaching south entrance." Mara took her position near the stairs to the catwalk. Summer heat poured through the high windows, making the air shimmer above the cargo floor. She thought of all the small moments that led here: a slap in a club, a jacket offered in kindness, a kiss that tasted of honesty and gunpowder. The door opened with a metallic groan. Kellen stepped inside, designer suit immaculate despite the warehouse grime. His smile was pure politician as he approached the stairs, gun held casually at his side, exactly as predicted. Mara gripped the catwalk railing, letting genuine fear shake her voice as she spoke the words that would spring their trap. "I know what you sold, and who you sold it to." Kellen's polished smile cracked. He lunged for the ledger case in Mara's hands, but she was already moving. Her knee drove up hard, catching him in the solar plexus. He staggered back, gasping, reaching for his weapon. The shot cracked through the warehouse like thunder. Kellen's gun spun away, skittering across the catwalk grating. Calder emerged from the shadows, his own weapon trained steady. "That was a warning. The next one won't be." "You wouldn't dare," Kellen wheezed, still doubled over. "The other families are watching right now," Mara cut in, tapping her earpiece. "Every word, every confession." Fear bloomed in Kellen's eyes as he spotted the 3 recording devices positioned around them. His carefully constructed mask shattered completely. "The king promised me control of the harbor routes," he spat. "Everything Calder has, it should have been mine. I fed him locations, schedules, security patterns. That night at the club, I made sure those rich brats targeted you specifically." Miles away, a convoy of black SUVs carried what appeared to be Calder toward a meeting point. The king's men verified the package through binoculars, build, clothing, even the characteristic way he carried himself. A perfect double, down to the last detail. The real Calder watched Kellen's breakdown through narrowed eyes. "Keep talking." And Kellen did, spilling details of offshore accounts, shell companies, and shadow networks that had kept the king's empire invisible. Each word was another nail in the coffin, transmitted instantly to waiting investigators. The king discovered the deception too late. By then, Mara had already sent strategic pieces of the ledger to key players, regulators, politicians, legitimate business owners who preferred their profits untainted. One by one, his escape routes disappeared. In the club's security room, Mara sat surrounded by monitors, directing teams through the maze of city streets. The restored CCTV network became her web, and the king was the fly. He's heading southeast, she reported into her headset. The Opera House tunnel system is his only remaining exit. Calder's strike team moved like smoke through the underground passages. Years of mapping the city's secrets paid off as they herded their target toward a dead end. The king's 2 remaining guards fell quickly, one to a precise shot, one to a knife thrown from shadows. The final confrontation exploded in the narrow space. The king fought like a cornered animal, all elegance abandoned. His blade opened a line of fire across Calder's ribs, but Calder's counterstrike shattered the king's elbow. They crashed against wet stone walls, grappling for dominance. Calder finally pinned him, knife pressed to the king's throat. Blood dripped onto concrete, each splash echoing in the tunnel's acoustics. "Do it!" the king wheezed. "Prove you're exactly what I made you." Mara's voice came through the earpiece, clear and steady. "You have a choice," she said softly. "End his reign, yes, but don't become what he wanted you to be." Calder's blade pressed deeper, drawing a thin line of red. For a heartbeat, the tunnel held its breath. Then he shifted his grip and drove the knife down, destroying the king's knee with surgical precision. The scream echoed off stone walls as Calder pulled the iron stamp, salvaged from the flower shop's ruins, from his jacket. The lily seal glowed cherry red in the darkness. "A reminder," Calder said coldly, pressing it against the king's wrist. "Every time you see this scar, remember, you lost everything because you underestimated a coat check girl's worth." Sirens began their distant wail as Calder stepped back, leaving the king broken but breathing. The once feared shadow was now just a man, clutching his ruined knee in a dirty tunnel while his empire crumbled above. "Your brother," Mara asked through the comm. "Safe," Calder confirmed, being treated at the secure facility. Teams moved with practiced efficiency, securing evidence and clearing paths before the first responders arrived. The king's laptop yielded passwords to accounts that would take months to fully unravel. Kellen's recorded confession would ensure cooperation from the harbor unions during the transition. In the security room, Mara watched it all unfold across her wall of screens. She saw Calder emerge from the tunnel, saw him pause to press a hand against his bleeding side. The wound wasn't serious, but her heart clenched. Anyway, "Medical team is 2 minutes out," she said into her headset. "I've had worse." "It doesn't make it better." She could hear his almost smile. "No, it doesn't." The first police cars appeared on her monitors, lights painting the streets in red and blue. Soon the official narrative would take over, a joint task force operation, months in the planning, targeting organized crime. The truth would stay buried in shadows where it belonged. Above ground, dawn was breaking over the city. The air smelled of rain and possibilities. In the warehouse, Kellen sat handcuffed and silent, his expensive suit stained with sweat. The ledger's secrets continued to spread through carefully chosen channels, dismantling the king's influence one transfer at a time. The operation had worked because everyone underestimated Mara. Her memory, her determination, her ability to turn surveillance against those who thought themselves untouchable. They'd seen a coat check girl, not the knife she would become. In the tunnel, the king's labored breathing echoed off stone walls. His elegant clothes were ruined, his knee destroyed, his wrist branded with the symbol of his downfall. He had built his power on secrets and shadows, never imagining that the light would come from below. Morning painted the river in strips of gold and silver, the water moving steady and sure like the new power flowing through the city's veins. The 5 were now 4, their balance shifted but stronger for having shed its weakest link. In a private room overlooking the water, the Dons signed the updated compact with heavy fountain pens that scratched across thick paper. Mara watched from beside Calder as Salvatore added the final flourish to his signature. The new clause stood out in dark ink. Mara Quinn is granted full protection under all families. Any action against her will be met with immediate and total response. Simple words that carried the weight of empires. "It's done," Dorian said, sliding the document into a leather folder. "The king's assets are being divided, Kellen's territory redistributed. The harbor runs clean now." Enzo raised his glass. "To new beginnings." They toasted with 100-year-old scotch. But Mara noticed how Calder barely sipped his. His hand stayed at the small of her back, a warm anchor through her silk blouse. He'd been touching her constantly since the tunnel, as if reassuring himself she was still there. The drive back to his townhouse was quiet, morning traffic parting around their black SUV like water around a stone. Mara watched the city scroll past, different now that she knew its secrets. Every alley held a story, every window might hide a sniper's nest. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Calder unlocked the heavy front door, the same one he'd sealed her behind that first night. Everything felt both familiar and new. The stone counters, the triple-glazed windows, the faint scent of coffee and gunmetal that seemed to follow him everywhere. He moved to the kitchen table and set down his sidearm, the same weapon he'd placed there when she was still a stranger under his protection. The metal gleamed in the morning light, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. "Wait here," he said softly, disappearing into his study. Mara ran her fingers along the table's edge, remembering how she'd curled on his sofa that first night, wrapped in his jacket, terrified and fascinated by the man who'd claimed her safety as his mission. Now she knew the weight of his past, the scars he carried, the brother he'd nearly lost. Calder returned with something small in his palm. He set a velvet box on the table and slid it toward her. Not a ring. They weren't there yet. But when she opened it, a key gleamed against the dark fabric. Modern, encrypted, probably worth more than her old apartment building. "This is yours," he said, voice rough. The house, the security codes, everything, including the parts of me that still bleed. Mara lifted the key, feeling its weight. "I accept," she said carefully, "but on my terms. I won't be kept or controlled. I'll be your partner, your equal. Always." He moved closer, caging her against the counter with his arms. "You're the only one who's seen all of me and stayed." She reached up to trace the scar along his jaw. "I'll be soft when you need shelter," she promised, "and sharp when you need backup, but you have to promise me something too." His eyes darkened. "Anything. Promise you'll stay who you are, lethal to them, gentle with me. Don't let this world make you hard all the way through." "Only you," he whispered against her hair. "Only you get to see me tender." They spent the morning making the house truly theirs, adding her few possessions to his militant order, her bright coffee mug beside his black one, her worn paperbacks mixed with his tactical manuals, her vanilla lotion on the bathroom counter next to his weapon oil. After lunch, they drove to the flower shop. The windows had been replaced, the charred walls rebuilt. Fresh paint covered the scorch marks and the display cases gleamed, but they'd kept one section of scorched counter under glass. The lily Calder had carved that day still visible, a reminder of what they'd survived. Mara arranged white lilies in the window, while Calder's men did final security sweeps. The flowers seemed to glow in the afternoon sun, their petals edged in gold. Customers began trickling in, drawn by the grand reopening signs and the sweet scent of fresh blooms. "It's perfect," she said, watching people laugh and chat as they selected bouquets. "Life going on, right where they tried to end it." Calder led her to the back room, now a private office with steel-reinforced walls and bulletproof glass. The security screens showed every angle of the shop and street, but they felt like protection now, not prison bars. He pulled her against his chest, one hand spanning her lower back, while the other tangled in her hair. The steady thud of his heart under her cheek reminded her that they'd both survived, both chosen this life with eyes wide open. "You're mine," he whispered into the quiet space between them. "Always." Mara smiled against his throat, feeling the pulse jump under her lips. "And you're only tender for me." The bell above the shop door chimed cheerfully, marking another customer stepping into their rebuilt world. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. They'd carved out their own space in this dangerous landscape, found balance between power and peace, violence and tenderness. Each pure note of the bell marked another clean step forward, away from shadows, and toward whatever light they would build together. Mara felt Calder's arms tighten around her, protective and possessive in equal measure, and knew they'd both finally found their way home.